All right, Ryan. The Lions went to Boston, went on out to Foxborough, and got completely owned by Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, 29-0. The vaunted offense that was leading the NFL coming into the game walked out with just as many points as they had scored all season going into the game after leaving the game. That, in my mind, actually looked better. They held the Patriots to field goals throughout, one offensive touchdown in the second half, but that was it. I thought they did a better job of keeping them out of the end zone. The Pats have struggled this year in the red zone in general, but it was nice to see that the Pats didn't improve how they did in the red zone after leaving this game with the Lions. One touchdown for the Patriots offensively, obviously the defensive one on the scoop and score off the Jared Goff fumble made it a bigger score. A lot of people out there screaming for everybody's heads, from Dan Campbell to Aaron Glenn, you name it. They're out there in droves now screaming to get this regime out of here and bring in the next regime already in game 22 of the Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes era. So before I get into everything that I saw from this game, what were your takeaways from this weekend's game in Foxborough?
So this weekend, I thought, is what I thought last week was going to look like with the offense, because in this weekend they had Amon-Ra St. Brown, but before that, when they're missing St. Brown and they're missing DeAndre Swift, or they're missing DJ Chark, like all these other weapons, and you're thinking it's not going to go well, and then they score 45 points, and then it's, oh, this offense can do anything with anybody. And then this week, you have like just a crashing back to earth moment where the offense goes out, and not only do they get shut out, they get outscored by New England's defense 7-0, and it's a week where you're going up against a third-string quarterback. So the defense had their best week, but you should have your best week going up against a third-string rookie quarterback who, by no plans, was supposed to take any type of snaps this year. And they did, right? They gave up 22 points, which should be enough to win you a game in the NFL if your defense is only going to give the other team 22. Obviously, the Lions didn't score at all. So I understand where the frustration comes, and it's really the worst game that the Lions have played all year, and it's probably the game that they were most expected to win. Maybe the Commanders game, which they actually did end up winning, but out of the first 5 games, this was the one that should have been a cakewalk, where you saw Bailey Zappe, and you saw the fact that you had Amon-Ra St. Brown back. And I know the Lions were still underdogs in the game, but I felt better going against New England than I did against Seattle, and obviously it didn't work out that way at all.
Yeah, I wonder if a lot of Lions fans made the same, for lack of a better term, mistake that you made in assuming that going up against Bill Belichick is a win. Like, that hasn't been the case for very many teams very often, even with, I understand, Tom Brady and that offense being gone, and they really have not rebuilt that offense yet. Their offensive weapons are just not there. They have a running situation that's nice. Their wide receivers, we talked about this last week, they don't really have a number one. They have a whole bunch of 2s and 3s that they piece together. The tight ends, Hunter Henry and them, have not panned out the way that people thought they would when they joined the New England Patriots. But it's still, if not the greatest head coach of all time, one of the greatest, and definitely the greatest modern head coach of all time in the NFL. And I don't think there's a better coach out there to take away your strengths and attack your weaknesses than Bill Belichick, even with a team not as good as he's accustomed to, not as good as New England in general is accustomed to. They have been ridiculously good for the last 20-plus years. But to have a coach who can scheme and plan like Bill Belichick can, it's a tall task for anybody. And I am not surprised in the least bit that our brand new head coach had circles run around him by Bill Belichick and his coach. Everyone was so focused on Matt Patricia and getting revenge at Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia, I don't think he does anything for the New England Patriots. I know he's there on the sideline, and I made this joke online, but I understand what he's supposed to be doing. I think he's there more like a Make-A-Wish kid, and like and Belichick just has him on the sideline because he likes the poor guy. I don't know what he actually does, but on the defensive side of the ball, which is where apparently he came from, they're not letting him touch, and they put him on the offensive side of the ball. And Bill Belichick, who has been a defensive genius since the 80s with the New York Football Giants, did what he does. And when you watch this game and you look at the trenches, this game was completely won and lost right then and there. New England Patriots dominated the Detroit Lions. When the Lions had the ball, their D-line dominated our O-line. When they had the ball, their O-line dominated our D-line. So right there in the trenches is all you need to look at for me. We can talk about everything else that happened, but in the trenches, which is where this game matters and where we've talked about where I want to see the Lions building their team from the inside out, and they have been doing that. Obviously, people aren't happy with what's happened so far, but they have been building it, in my mind, the right way from the trenches out. We got completely embarrassed, completely dominated by a brilliant football mind and a better team when you look at what they pieced together to be able to do against a new young head coach, a new young regime, and they made Jared Goff look foolish. They got pressure on him all day, and he made bad read after bad read with pressure in his face, and they completely took advantage of it.
They did take advantage, and I know you mentioned it when we talked about this on Friday, was just the coaching advantage that the Patriots had. And I thought the coaching advantage would be canceled out by the fact that they had a third-string quarterback. It most certainly was not. And Dan Campbell, outside of just calling plays, because I know he doesn't call plays or call the defense or do anything really, but like calling the 4th and 9, that the Lions are down 6-0, it's a 48-yard field goal, and you just signed your kicker, Badgley, this week. And if you're not going to trust them to kick a 48-yard field goal, then what'd you sign him for? And again, dude, it's 4th and 9, so you're not going to get it. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, it's 4th and 1, and the numbers told us we had a better shot of getting 4th and 1 than we did of making this field goal. That I understand. But at that point, the Patriots had kicked 2 field goals themselves, so it's not like they were moving the ball down the field. And if you can't kick a 48-yard field goal, then one, like, why are you signing a kicker really in the first place if you're not going to trust them to make that kick? And I thought that decision was just astounding, honestly. Like, it was befuddling. And I know we're going to talk about the rebuild a little bit later, but it's one of those things that makes you lose faith in Dan Campbell, because it's happened last year and it happens this year, and he goes in every press conference and says, oh man, I wish I had that one back. Well, stop doing it.
No, I hear you. And there were some questionable calls that Dan Campbell made. That 4th and 9 was really the only egregious one, because you're right. You did just sign Michael Badgley from the Bears, who he just had made 4 field goals for them last week while he was filling in for Santos, and that's why he was let go. And that was the one. But there were other ones as well. The first, was it the first one? Yeah, so the first 4th down they went for. It's half a yard, all right? And they went for the inside handoff instead of a quarterback sneak. I don't understand going backwards to try and go forward. It's never made sense to me. When you have to get literally less than 3 feet, you're the quarterback, fall forward. That's all you have to do to get the first down at that point. I know I'm making it sound simple. It's not simple. But the idea to go backwards 2 yards, to hand it to a running back, to then go back forward those plus yards, that one didn't make sense to me. The 4th and 9 is the only one where it was a little bit in no man's land. Yeah, it was right around the 33-yard line, which gives you about a 50-yard field goal, 48 like you said. And maybe he's just shell-shocked by how bad the kicking has been so far since he's been with the Lions. They just haven't had a long, consistent kicker. Obviously, he's only been here for 22 games like we said, but in that time period, the kicking situation has been spotty at best. But you're right. You signed a kicker for a reason. Utilize him. That one is the one that stands out. But the other 4th downs that they went for throughout this game, and everyone wants to pick them apart for going 0 for 6 on 4th down, every other 4th down to me made sense. The first one, I just didn't like the play call, but it made sense. The third 4th down is 4th and 2 from the Pats' 35-yard line. Again, it's a 52-yard field goal, and Goff missed horribly the play before on 3rd and 2. He passes it short of the sticks, doesn't get the first down. Terrible play, either terrible execution or terrible design, one way or the other. Throw it on the players or throw it on him. The 4th down they went for is 4th and goal from the 6 later in the game. It's a pass to Amon-Ra. He's heavily covered. It bounces off his chest. It wouldn't matter if he had grabbed it anyway. There were 3 Patriots around him. He wasn't getting into the end zone. So the plays that you're running, even if they're called and they're the right play, they're not being executed correctly, and you're putting yourself in a hole with this as well. There were brain dead moves by the coaching staff for sure, and by the players for sure. You can attribute that to the youngness of our head coach, the fact that he was a former football player, so he's headstrong and he always wants to go for it. I don't know, but you're absolutely right that in the moment he has made mistakes, and there needs to be not just accountability, but a rectifying of that. And I'm not saying fire him. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. I don't want him fired. I want to see this play out a lot longer than just the 22 games that we've seen so far. But there needs to be someone there. Who was the head coach? Was it McVay that had a guy that would hold him back and keep him away from the sideline? Some head coach in the NFL, I think it was McVay, where he had like a strength and conditioning coach that would just pull him away from the... Campbell needs a guy like that says, Coach, kick the damn ball. Or Coach, do this, Coach, do... Like, just every once in a while to get Campbell out so he can get out of his own way, because he wants to win and do this so badly, but he makes these mistakes on the field that are so costly.
So apparently they have somebody like that, and I don't know the gentleman's name, but they were talking about it on the radio probably about a week and a half ago. And it's essentially, it's like a football consultant, but his job is supposed to be, because you see other teams have it, like these sort of game situation gurus, and a lot of teams, it's not just the Lions, a lot of teams mess up these late game situations or these fourth down situations. So it's not a Lions specific problem, but I would say Dan Campbell is probably just one of the worst at it in the entire league. So it's not something new, right? It's not something that would be cutting edge, and it's, oh my God, why didn't anybody ever think of this? The Lions supposedly have one. I don't know that gentleman or woman should have a job right now based on what we've seen transpire. But I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the team is doing, or how you don't get this right, because it seems like, and look, we're fans. Everybody, armchair quarterback, right? You look at home and you're like, oh, you just easily do that. How'd you miss that dude streaking up the sideline? X, Y, and Z. And while that's not always wrong, right, and sometimes there is some merit to that, like the play calling one, it just seems like it should be easier, at least the decision making, not even the actual calling of the play, but like, hey, you should definitely kick a field goal right here for X, Y, and Z reason. And then when the team doesn't, and obviously it's going to backfire, it's just super frustrating, and I can see why fans are honestly starting to lose their patience with it.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN, and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.